Good evening.
Good evening. Hello, Jake. How's it going?
I'm very well. We've been having all sorts of fun backstage as Andy frantically tries to get his computer and his phone working. And
Guys, I'm really sorry. I feel like if there's any technical geeks out there, my camera is blocked on my computer. I feel like I need to clear browsing history, but I can't work out how to do it, like clear the cache. Some of you guys I know are technical, so if you have any kinds of help, that would be absolutely brilliant.
we're now going to get lengthy instructions coming through to save Andy.
I'm just save Andy. I'm just going to put my phone in landscape mode. This happened last time. So how's that? Ta-da. Like, it's as good as new, right? That looks great. Right. We're going with this.
Lovely.
Guys, how are we all doing?
We're great. We've it's already people saying their hellos.
Yeah.
Evening all from Greg, Steve Coleman Williams. Looking forward to the Kilkerran. Yeah, we've got Andrew Thulis, who's saying evening all. Really looking forward to this batch of treats. Pexman, Simon, Peter Gill. I mean, there's loads of people saying hello. Looking forward to this, and I am too.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's my first time. Yeah, thank you, Chris. It's a Mac. I think it's this actually. Now I've just spotted this. The three.
You're actually getting technical support coming through. It's great.
Yeah, technical support coming through. The three little dots. Delete browsing data. Is that the one, Chris? Or Steve Coleman Williams? I know you're technical because you built us an app. So, and he's mentioned it there when he's got the question mark saying what app. Steve built us an app, which was the to be fair, Steve says it's better quality than my laptop usually looks. So.
Stick with it. There you go.
There you go, guys. I'm not going to do anything about this. It's done.
Claire M saying great selection this month. So we've got sort of a bit of an American theme, haven't we? We were chatting, I think a couple of months back, maybe. There was, in the comments here saying, wouldn't it be fun to do a full bourbon box? Yeah, yes. we haven't quite done, but it's geared towards America this month, which is cool.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of some kind of 4th of July celebration, slightly later, maybe.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah,
jump on that bandwagon. Any excuse, really.
yeah. That I did do that, Steve. That's what I was literally just doing. But after you just mentioned that this looks better, then I'm just going to go with this.
It's all good. I think we're good, Andy.
Yeah, we're good. Let's stay. Right, guys, we've got a great show lined up for you tonight. I'm in. So, Jake, do you want to run through the order for us?
Yeah. So,
tasting proceedings.
We have the Bardstown Bourbon Company bottled in bond. Mm-hmm. That's a wheated bourbon coming up.
Lovely.
So you're going to chat with Dan.
Wonderful.
We've got Westland, which is a single cask American single malt, which is exclusive to Master of Malt and Pour and Sip.
Wonderful.
So we've got Anna to chat to about that. So I'm going to have a conversation with her. And then, the Kilkerran heavily peated. I know
I'm looking forward to that one.
You're a big Campbeltown fan, so that's all you, I think.
Yeah. What batch? This is batch 9, isn't it?
This is batch 9, yeah.
I can't remember what I've got over there. I have got one. I can't remember what batch it is. But anyway, it's all good. All the batches have been good. But anyway,
let's get to it, shall we? Yeah.
And then I'm going to talk through Four Roses briefly.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So then we'll have a quick chat about the other two in the box as well.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about the Noble Rebel, yeah.
That sounds pretty cool. And do remember, guys, please get involved with your comments. And if you've got any questions for our guests, please do answer, because that's really part of what makes these, because you guys get involved and it's really cool. So get involved. Let us know your tasting notes, what you think of the whiskies. If this is your first time doing this, let us know what you think. Don't think any kind of tasting note is too silly or any question is too silly. No such thing exists. They're all subjective. I mean, some questions aren't subjective, but tasting notes are subjective because we all have different palates. But just get involved and let's have
no such thing as a stupid question. If you're wondering something, someone else will also be wondering something. So it's good to
no such thing. A subjective question was what I was talking about. It's not subjective, but yes, ask any question, whatever question you want, ask it for our guests. I'm sure they'll be willing to answer.
Should we bring in our first guest?
I think I'm ready for my first whiskey, which I feel like I need now. So, and our first guest. So let's go.
Technology under control.
Yep. Can't for now.
Let's bring in Dan.
Dan the man, how's it going?
Dan the man, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Is that on my end, by the way?
It might be.
Can you hear it?
Okay, there is a bit of a weird echo.
Yeah. It is a bit of a weird echo. Okay. That sounds like it's been...
I'll tell you what. If you mute Andy, is that sorted it for now? I think it has. I can hear myself. Oh no. Yeah. Oh no. This was all flying backstage. I'm just gonna take Andy out. Still doing it. If I... Do you want to try muting? Dan. It really isn't the day for technology, is it? Dear, oh dear. Right, that seems... So perhaps it's your end, Dan. That seems all right.
Is it happening?
We were just chatting backstage. Absolutely fine.
Let me...
So we've got the tech support from the Pour and Sip members saying the guest mic is picking up his speakers, but it's not echoing for me now. Try saying something else.
Your echo. Pop off and pop on.
Yeah, I think we'll try that. Sorry, Dan.
Be right
Yeah,
back.
Peter Watts is saying Dan has some sort of feedback. Yeah, it's we were literally just talking to him backstage with absolutely no problems. I don't know, between that and Andy, it's been a fun evening technology-wise so far. Hello, Dan. That's sounding better.
Okay, I can hear you great.
We can hear you. We were just having some feedback. I don't know what that was all about. Right, let's bring Andy in because he wasn't the problem. There we go.
I wasn't the problem. Please apologise.
Well, you can understand why we assumed you were.
Right, guys.
Right.
This is going really well. So I'm hoping that the whiskey that Dan has to present for us tonight is going to be slightly better than the technical issues that this pour and sip evening has been having so far.
I am sorry to
Steve
new members tuning in and like, what's going on?
Steve Coleman Williams is saying the American accent in robot voice is actually amazing. So
okay,
it was a special effect. Yeah, just for
all right then. So let's just get tasting whiskey because we've done enough of this technical. So Dan, talk to us a bit about yourself firstly and how you got into the industry and how you found yourself at Bardstown.
Sure. So Dan Callaway, I'm the master blender and head of product development for Bardstown Bourbon Company and Green River Distillery. I actually grew up in England, so spent my first 11 years, just outside London. Well, I bumped around a little bit, Northampton area and then London for a bit, and then came over to the United States when I was 11 and was initially a musician for a long time and played in orchestras, and then over the last decade have been transitioning into whiskey and bourbon and have just fallen in love with this spirit and love everything that we're doing at Bardstown Bourbon Company.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I mean, I'm a musician as well, so I'm wondering, that in the space of that 10 years, how you transitioned from musician in orchestras to master blender. That sounds like the story I want to hear.
I was playing in an orchestra in New Orleans, the Louisiana Philharmonic, and was doing these tours and met my wife on one of those tours, and she was a Kentucky girl. So I moved to Kentucky, and once you're in Kentucky, you kind of naturally fall into bourbon. I got into wine initially and cocktails from New Orleans, got my SOM certifications, and then met the people starting Bardstown Bourbon Company. Initially came on as part of the beverage program, and then really leaned into product development and putting our blends and finishes together. And now I'm just running with it.
That's awesome. Lovely to hear. So talk to us a bit about Bardstown firstly, and how did it come about? Why did you choose that location, in the heart of Kentucky and this new distillery? And right in the heart of Kentucky and whiskey town, Bourbon town. Talk to us about it.
Yeah, great question. So when we were building it, we could have put the distillery anywhere in the country. You know, Miami was thrown around, San Francisco. It was really an intentional decision to come to Bardstown, Kentucky, which is the bourbon capital of the world. There's 11 distilleries within 16 miles of Bardstown. And so we wanted to surround ourselves with all that tradition and history and bring a modern take to the industry. So being modern to us is really three things: innovation, collaboration, and transparency. We're innovative. We have the most technically advanced distillery in the US. We produce over 60 recipes. We target 500 points of production. You'll see innovation all across our releases. We're collaborative because we were the first of its kind. We have a full service restaurant and a bar. And we thought, we were building a hospitality program. What came with that is an executive chef, a beverage director, all these unique viewpoints that we can look at things as a team. But above all else, we're transparent. If you know anything about bourbon, it's an industry kind of cloaked in a lot of myths, legends, made up kernels, all kinds of stories. What we do with our products, and if you see any bottle, is we put the recipe, the age, where it was distilled, when it was distilled, right on the label. And if it's not on the label, it'll be on the website. And when you come see us, which I hope you guys make the trip and see us sometime, take pictures of the distillery, ask any questions. So
wow.
Yeah, we built our brand in 2016. We've rapidly grown. We now produce over 10 million proof gallons annually, just outside at Bardstown. And we say never stand still. And we've just continued that growth.
That's great. So you were talking about innovation. Like, how difficult is it to maintain the right balance between being surrounded by, being in the bourbon capital and maintaining the traditions and the respect of what's gone before, but also being innovative at the same time?
It's a great question. And with the pour, that we'll try this evening, really has that balance too. Respecting the classic spirit, right? This is a bottle and bond expression. Classic Kentucky bourbon profiles of caramel, vanilla, baking spice. You'll see a lot of that in our core expressions. And then with our finishes, whether we're finishing in infrared, cherry wood, or we're working with, we just did the first ever of its kind, an American whiskey finished in Indian whiskey barrels with amrut, right?
Wow.
So we've done a lot of firsts and really just keep pushing and exploring flavor.
I was looking at that. And you put amrut on the label?
Yeah, it's one of the coolest things we do is our collaborative series. So we've done it. We were the first to do it with Foursquare Rum, for example. We did for Cullen Irish whiskey. We have a great Scottish whiskey coming out. And with all of them, and people find this hard to believe, there's no contract involved, right? It's just a lot of them I'll set up through an Instagram message and we will exchange barrels. There's no legal team, no money changes hands. We just trade barrels. And you think about the level of trust with a brand like Foursquare or Amrut, that they would put their branding, their logo, their name on our bottle. Just that trust really in what we can create and how we can explore these finishes.
Yeah, that's really awesome, isn't it? Like, it's just like the collaboration thing is really unique, I suppose, particularly where you guys are.
Totally.
So, yeah, that's super interesting. And you were talking about transparency as well, and that's important to you guys. So you say you've got the recipes on the bottle. For the one we're drinking tonight, what's the recipe? What's the mash bill?
So we're going to do, bourbon is always majority corn. Any spirit in the world, right? You start with what grows well locally. Corn and wheat grow well in Kentucky. So then you have your fork. You either pick aggressive, spicy rye as your second grain or smooth, passive wheat. It's just like the breads, right? This one uses wheat, which inherently doesn't have the sweetness. It just lets the sweet corn through. Easiest way I tell people to remember it is rye is dry, wheat is sweet. So this is 68% corn, 20% wheat, 12% malted barley. And I have to give credit on this one. Why this one is so special. Our bottle and bond, our master distiller, Steve Nally, he started at Maker's Mark. He's known as the Wheat King in Bardstown. He started at Maker's Mark. They were doing 70 barrels in a week. They now do 1,500 barrels in a day. He oversaw the rise, but at Maker's, they make one recipe, right? So he did all that making one recipe. This is the recipe he always wanted to make, right? And it's a 6-year expression. So I don't know if you want to go into the tasting yet or.
Well, yeah. Well,
There's people already dropping tasting notes here, and then there's a question as well. So that'll probably I'll run through them quickly.
Yeah. Go for it.
So Peter Gilmore's getting honey sweetness and brown sugar. There's some cinnamon toast. Pexman saying it's lovely and rich, sweet. He's getting some molasses. Real Boinger's getting popcorn and honey, some maple syrup. Anthony Mullins has got it reminds me of Bluebird toffee. It's like a toffee that you used to break with a hammer. Malcolm Tucker, it's got some oaks and red berries as well, some sweetened chocolate. We've got some burnt coffee beans and walnuts over Steve Coleman Williams. Rum and raisin ice cream being mentioned. Loads of great notes.
All right.
Then Steve Coleman Williams has asked, which I'm sure you're about to get onto anyway.
That's literally just the question I was about to ask.
Yeah, what does it mean that when something's bottled in bond?
Yeah, that's it's in the U.S., bottle and bond actually came before any food regulations. Goes all the way back to 1897. And this is back when distilleries, some not as much quality control. So they would add things in to get coloring, everything from tobacco spit to juicing it with maybe a little neutral grain spirit. Bottle and bond is to ensure quality. Nowadays, it's a little different. Where we look at it, the reason we do bottle and bond is it shows that it was made by us, one distiller, one distilling season at one distillery. It has to be 100 proof, and it has to be aged at least 4 years. And I stop at the aging point. A couple things to point out. I'm sure you guys know this, but bourbon is really the only spirit that has to be aged in a new charred oak barrel. So when I hear all that toffee, the caramel, I think of barrel aging as a seesaw. No matter what you start with, it comes off water clear, right? And all the color comes from the barrel. So this bottle and bond, the rich color, it's at 6 years. Every year that goes by, the seesaw, the distillate, it's really grain and fruit on the nose, and then the caramel vanilla baking spice takes it into balance. When you have 6 years, that's really when you find that balance between grain and barrel in bourbon. And it's shorter than, say, a traditional Scottish whiskey, but it's because of the new charred oak barrel and all the flavor it imparts. We really find that true balance at 6 years. So legally required to be 4 to be a bottle and bond, but this went the extra 2 just to really find that balance between fruit and barrel.
Yeah, absolutely. There's the oak notes coming through as well. There's like a little menthol note as well for me on the nose.
Yeah.
Really, really nice. Lots and lots of caramel, butterscotch, honey, dark honey, which is really, really, really nice. What do you think, Jake?
Yeah, I mean, it's. I took a little sip as well. And I don't know if you saw me. So the camera's on, obviously, but I was here going like.
Wait, I wasn't ready.
That's a really nice drop. We've got who left the milk out? Which is a great name, by the way. As I said, this is the best start ever. This is a great drop. So they're liking it.
That's great.
Yeah, the comments are still coming in.
Yeah, and when you do sip it, it's really interesting, right? Back to the rye and the wheat. Rye inherently, the grain rye has more tannin than wheat. So it's going to have a sticky, grippier finish, just like a cab or if you left your tea in, right? Wheat is going to have a softer liftoff. So if you're making a premium cocktail, I would use our high rye bourbon, our white label bourbon, because it could punch with vermouth or ginger. This, to me, makes a beautiful soft sipper with an easy liftoff comparatively.
Is there any particular cocktail you'd put this in, or just not put it in a cocktail?
You absolutely can put it in a cocktail. To me, there's always a nice lemon, orange, citrus note. So a classic whiskey sour with this is really nice. So it's just, this bourbon, lemon, sugar, you can take or leave the egg white. But with wheated bourbons, I veer away from heavy, like tons of Angostura bitters or ginger or anything that's going to override it.
Yeah, I mean, Steve Coleman Williams, one of our guests, has been here for a long time, saying, I really like this. If you converted me to bourbon after 3 years, pour and sip. So, yeah, it's good. What actually hit me as well is the mouthfeel. It's really creamy. Mm-hmm. When you first mix it, it's like really creamy, and it's just the viscosity is really, really nice. It's really nice. First time trying this, by the way, as well. And
awesome.
that's the thing that sticks out for me so far as being the nicest part of it.
Absolutely. The viscosity, 100 proof, so 50% alcohol. Alcohol weight, go hand in hand, but also the creaminess really comes from the wheat that's in there.
Yeah,
So if you compared it to bourbon with rye as a secondary grain, which we have a great one, that would be more pop and spice.
Mhm.
This is more cream.
Are there any other famous brands of bourbon that make with high wheated content?
There's a few.
I'm joking. I'm joking. There's an expensive one out there. You might be able to get your hands on it one day. One day. So yeah, no, absolutely amazing. There's lots of notes coming in still. I'm trying to move my phone away from the computers. Honestly, I'm just so stressed out about how I've set this whole thing up, but I'm just trying to move my phone so I can see. Steve Conway is very spicy, neat, touch of water really mellows it. Now getting the maple syrup and canned peach juice. Obviously this is 50% 100 proof. So yeah, for all of those who don't know, what is the reason why we have proof in America instead of ABV?
It's gets a little apocryphal territory, so it depends who you ask. The common answer I hear, well, legally we put both on, right? So it's simply doubling is a way to test the alcohol, right? If you poured that liquid on gunpowder, say you were trading, and it caught fire, the gunpowder lit, then you would know you were at proof and the alcohol was, you were buying a product that would work. And that level was 100 proof. So that was basically, if we were trading or smuggling, whatever we were doing, and poured this liquid on some gunpowder, this is right when it would catch fire.
Sure. Okay, there you go. That's a great answer. I love that. But Alex, so Steve Conway says, to be honest, I didn't like it before. The water was a bit too spicy, but the splash of water has opened it up. Alex Antonio said, presumably bourbons get their colour from the charring of the barrel. Are there any lighter colour bourbons made? Is the question.
Great question. So color is indicative of a few things, mainly the proof, right? So if you went into the barrel at 120, or you take it out, it's 120, and you add water, you take it down to 80 proof or 40% alcohol, it's going to be a lot lighter. Also age. Bourbons get, how long it's been in the barrel. So their lightness is really a signal of how long it's aged and the proof. So if you had a 2-year bourbon at 80 proof or 40%, it would be incredibly light.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's all natural. It's also you cannot add caramel coloring to bourbon.
Yeah,
it's all from the wood.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. A lot of people, why does bourbon have to be a new charred oak barrel? It's a good trivia question. After Prohibition, it started pushing and pushing, and then was put into law in 1964 when they made bourbon the distinctive spirit of the U.S. Any guesses who lobbied Congress so hard and spent a lot of money to put that into law?
It's an alcoholic president, ex-president, maybe.
No, it was the cooperage, the lumber industry.
Oh, okay,
wanted to make sure, but that legislation has gone on to define bourbon's profile: the caramel, vanilla, baking spice, all the sugar that's available in the wood on the first use. The reason you char it is to bring the sugars to the forefront and really break down some of the compounds so they can interact with the liquid. Aging in Kentucky, though, for bourbon is the most important part. What you want is swings in temperature. When it's really hot, and say at the top of the rickhouse, the barrel is going to expand. There's more pressure. The liquid's going to go in. If you're on in the winter, pushes, and there's less pressure, and it comes out. But what you want is the swings, right? Season to season. And then at the top floors, and maybe you're in a window, it's really day-to-day diurnal shifts. And that's what causes the natural development.
Yeah. And this is why bourbon tends to be younger as well than Scotch. Because
and the floors in the rickhouse, the high heat, just truly evaporation. If you're on the top floor after 20 years, your barrel's bone dry.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, and it would taste like a tree too. It just goes too quickly.
It just goes too quickly. There's a couple of other questions I wanted to ask you as well. The first one was about the Napa Valley style. What does that mean for anyone who doesn't know?
Yeah, so we're seeing this across the industry now in Kentucky, the Napification of the bourbon trail, right? And we really were on the forefront. This is back in 2017. They passed a law where you could buy a pour at a distillery. It used to be you just get your little sample and go on your way. So now we leaned in, we jumped on, we were the first of its kind, built a full service bar restaurant attached to the distillery. And then most importantly, built our tours and our hospitality program as a way to build the brand. It wasn't an obligation. It's not like, it was a way where we could build fans of the brand. So we have cocktail classes, barrel thieving, all kinds of immersive experiences. We have a vintage library that has product back to 1892 that's all available by the pour. So we want people to come down and spend the day. And that type of hospitality is now being picked up all over the Bourbon Trail. And that's what they mean with the natification.
You're really making me want to go. You're selling this distillery to me. You're really selling this distillery to me. And what does the future hold for Bardstown? What's in the pipeline?
Yeah, we're really just at the beginning of our runway. We're a new brand. Our capacity is huge. What we're distilling, we distill for ourselves and then others, but our brands are just in their infancy, right? We're still going into new states. So for the future for Bardstown, you're going to see our Origin series, 4 core variants releases continue to grow, and then we'll start to be able to, with our premium expressions, our aged, work our own product in. They'll be all Bardstown liquid, and then the same in Green River, and then hopefully overseas we can add a couple more markets. Right now we have great relationships in the UK and London, but in a very, very select tiny volume, and I'm just really looking forward to those expanding as we continue to grow, still keeping this kind of entrepreneurial spirit with a small team mentality.
When do you expect it to be? You'll have a product that's fully Bardstown then?
Well, these are the
okay.
Origin series. If it says Origin, 100% grain to glass. We distilled, aged, bottled it. It's just working this into the Discovery series, which we're starting to put ours in small series, and our collaborative finishing program.
That's super exciting, and we're all going to be here for it in the UK. We'll just be waiting for bigger volume.
Awesome. Yeah, it's coming.
For you guys, it's coming. Right, Dan, thank you very much. We spoke to 2 versions of you tonight, the robot version of Dan and the real version. Both have been a pleasure.
I'll say the best way to keep up with us, bardstownbourbon.com, our Instagram, and then if you want to see what the new projects coming in the pipeline, you can just hit me up on Danny Bardstown on Instagram. I love interacting with people and telling about our products. And sincerely, thanks for having me.
Lovely stuff. Thank you so much, Dan. Cheers.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that was fantastic stuff, that, isn't it?
Lovely start to the evening.
Still got bone dry casks up at the top of those rick houses. It's some bone dry glasses in our members' rooms.
What a segue, Jake. Have you been doing this for years? That was such a segue.
Pretty good, wasn't it? Yeah.
Honestly, I couldn't have dreamed of making up something like that.
But no, there's some empty drams and
empty drams
very easily.
Yeah, that was lovely. So I really, really enjoyed that. What do we have next?
I did have a note about. Hold on, what was it? The Bardstown Bourbon Co. were the 2023 IWSC Worldwide Whiskey Producer of the Year. So that's
there you go.
Mega, isn't it?
That's pretty mega.
And now
he didn't even say it. So it's modest as well, yeah. And that's what I love.
Well, now we've got the 2022 Sustainable Distillery of the Year from the Global Icons of Whiskey. There you go. See ya. Yeah. Not forgetting about your awards as well, Anna. Let's bring Anna in.
On that note, yeah.
Another seamless segue, Andy.
Yes, yeah, it's
killing it. Hello, Anna.
Hi, lovely to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you very much for joining us. So, you're from Westland.
Yes, I am.
Is it Westland or Westland? Should I be saying?
Yeah, either works. Westland.
That's good.
Yeah.
Tell us, a bit about yourself. I think your journey into whiskey's been quite interesting and musical, like Dan's.
Yeah, I went, oh, I have something I can add to that. I think we have a theme this evening. So my history is a little unusual of coming into the whiskey world. My professional training, I worked in professional orchestras for 15 years. So my undergraduate and master's degree were all in music and administration of orchestras. But I'd been a whiskey fan forever. I studied abroad in Scotland, so a big fan. And I have been drinking Westland long before I worked here, actually, which is kind of amazing. But I actually did WSET, spirits level 2 and 3, and then started working part-time at a small distillery in doing brand ambassadorship work and then working in the rack house. So actually doing the barrel transfers and bottling and blending and all that, which was delightful. Then I went through our Whiskey Foundation mentorship program and ended up getting a job here at Westland, which has been amazing. So I work with all of our export markets and independent bottlers, as well as a few other things. So my title is Business Development Manager, which encompasses a lot of things, but it means I get to work with our teams around the world and get to go to festivals and talk to folks about Westland. So it's a great time.
How long have you been working for Westland for?
2 years now.
2 years. Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Westland is sort of a distillery that fascinates me. I think it's super freaking cool. We had Matt Hoffman, the co-founder, on a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
So I think I'll beat Steve to saying exactly what month and which one we had. It was July 22. It was Westland American Oak we had before.
Yes,
that was a couple of years back. So some of the members will remember that. Some
I know
won't.
Steve Coleman Williams will remember that.
Well, I know exactly. This is it. So
it's not the cyclist, is it? You set this up.
What, Matt Hoffman? No.
Yeah. No. Okay. Fine. Just double check it just before it's like.
He's like
double checking because it's a bit of a.
It's not like the Tony Hawk of the BMX.
Yeah, the Tony Hawk.
He actually has a distillery on the side. No.
Carry on.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, like I say, I'm sure newer members or not everyone's memories will span that far. So explain sort of a bit about the philosophy and why I might think it's freaking cool.
So we're really about innovation in the American single malt world, but we started distilling in 2010 is when Matt and his co-founders started. And we had our first release in 2013. And we have the focus is on flavor. We're obsessed with flavor and looking at raw ingredients and yes, sustainability, working within the agricultural systems of this area, but really trying to explore flavor through a number of different ways. And we're really inspired by our region. Pacific Northwest is a beautiful place. If you all haven't been here, you should come. We have multiple mountain ranges. We have water, we have trees. It's delightful. There's a lot of coffee culture and beer culture as well. So that kind of fed into our approach to raw ingredients. And really the thing to kind of know is that we aren't trying to recreate Scotch. They're doing a great job. So we don't need to make single malt that is like that. We want to put our own American stamp on it and say something new in the world of single malts. So the approach for that is really using roasted malts, which is something that's used in the beer world all the time. So I have this lovely little example here of our different roasted malts.
Nice.
We have the pale malt that everybody uses. It is high yield, excellent flavor. And we have Munich malt. And then extra special. It's a secret how they make it, so that's why it's extra special. And then brown malt and pale chocolate malt. And these two are typically used in porters and stouts, which is where you can get some of these dark roasted coffee chocolate notes. The other barleys give more of kind of waffle cone or biscuit and sort of expand the flavors in different ways. And then we also use a Belgian Saison yeast, which is certainly different than the M strain that most distillers use, which, while delightful, we wanted to, again, play with flavor in a different way. So our Belgian Saison yeast gives some citrus, gives some clove, gives some dark red fruit notes as well. And then we do use a lot of New American Oak. We have two different styles that we use, but not everything is a New American Oak. We also have 65 different types of casks in the warehouse. So you name it, we probably have it, including the cask that we're going to try tonight is a unique one that I hadn't had before until recently. So it's been a fun one to explore. But yeah, we really like to explore other focuses on the raw ingredients as well. So through some of our other series, the Outpost range, we have Clary, which is focused on varietals of barley, which is a really interesting and fascinating thing, but we're working directly with the farmers on this of different barley varietals. Then we have our Garryana, which is focused on a native species of oak called Quercus Garryana. which tastes, that one is probably one you've had. It's a very unique flavor, very bold flavor, but it's fun to play with for a master blender to kind of explore the different facets of that. And then our latest exploration has been into local peat. So there's a peat bog that's just under 2 hours away from here, and that's with our release Solum, and it tastes very different than Scottish peat. So I would encourage anyone who is a peat head to go find it and try it out, because the vegetal notes are different. You're not getting iodine in there or that medicinal quality, but these other types of flavors that come from the different vegetation in the bog. And I could
there's so much to delve further into there between malt, yeast, casks. I think a lot of people don't even think of American peat as a as a thing. But I think if we go back to the malt, it's worth stressing just how kind of mental it is that these really flavorful great malts used in beer, so commonly. Just the whiskey world just almost been completely oblivious to them. I think there's the Glenmorangie Signet, the most famous Scotch example. I think maybe one or two other people have
I tried last night. I was at a tasting for Toravaig, and they gave us a porter cask that they never used properly because they said they discarded it because it just quite wasn't as chocolatey as they wanted it to be.
Right, but why use a porter cask when you can use the malt that makes a porter, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I promise it doesn't take much. For those percentages, the brown malt and the pale chocolate malt are 4% each. Wow. And the mash bill, a little goes a long way. So, and that isn't about yield, because obviously the sugars have all been caramelized away. But it really adds a lot of flavor, and it goes a lot. And that sort of strong and bold flavors of that 5 malt stand up really well against the structure of New American Oak. And they, instead of fight each other, they really support each other's flavors. So then we can play with it in different ways of these finishing casks or however else we want to approach it.
But that's, you've touched on it, haven't you? The yield is the sort of number one concern often with barley. How many liters of alcohol am I going to get back, rather than flavor being king, which it should be, right? We had Strathern last month, which is a really cool new distillery, and they use Maris Otter, which is kind of more of a flavorful heritage beer malt, right? Rather than just worrying about yield. So that's cool.
Yeah, we did a Maris Otter, some summers ago, and there's still a bit of it floating around the rack house. And we had a single cask last year that had it, and it was my favorite of the year for sure.
And I suppose we should talk about this specifically.
Let's talk about this one, because it is exclusive to Master of Malt, which is really exciting. And this one, let me give you some more stats on it. So this is made with our 5 malt mash bill, as I've already talked about, which is our house signature style. It spent 4 years in New American Oak Cooper's Select cask, which means it has a low toast and a high char, so more similar to a bourbon barrel than the other version that we use. And then it had almost 3 years in the Jurançon cask, which is a sweeter dry white wine from the southwest of France. And I just really personally love how these flavors play together. But some other fun facts about this particular spirit is that this particular run followed a production run of heavily peated. So if you happen to get maybe a hint of some peat in there, that's why, because it was the first run following a peated run. So it's kind of a neat little addition. But we had just 1 of 8 casks of these Jurançon. So this is definitely a special one that you have.
It's so cool because I certainly, when I cracked the dram open, I could get a bit of the smoke. I think now it's kind of, I'm getting the rest of the sort of chocolatey house style coming through as well. The smoke's there, but it's not it's not actually decent, right? So it's just a suggestion. But what a perfect thing to do a single cask release for, rather than blending that away.
Oh yeah, for sure. And this is what's great to see, kind of the 5 malt through the different facets of what these other casks sort of highlight, which I really love. I have tasting notes, but I would really love to hear what everybody else is tasting on it. Hopefully they're enjoying it.
Andy, you are.
There's Peter Gilmore, sweet, fruity, spicy, single cask whiskey. Malcolm Tucker saying, hard to pick up notes on the nose, but got red apple peel, cherry nuts, and a hint of gloss paint. Simon, apples at first, now more fruit cake, real boring. The taste is still cherries, but on caramel infused sponge cake. Black chocolate appears in the finish. Steve Con Williams is asking a question. I'll just get it said, forgive my ignorance. I get this is American. Is this technically a bourbon?
I love this question because I do get it all the time. So no, it is not a bourbon. It is a single malt because it is made with 100% malted barley. Even though we are using different specialty malts, they are still all barley. And the single indicates that it's from a single distillery. So as I'm sure Dan would talk about, the bourbon has to be made with 51% or more of corn. So it's really about the mash bill. So yeah, definitely still a single malt, but just made in the US. And we are based in Seattle, Washington, which I hope I said before, but I'm going to reiterate that. So
spoke about how the coffee seems to be quite important there. Was there a famous coffee brand that was set up there in Seattle?
Maybe it might be have a green logo with a mermaid.
I've seen it
Maybe
around.
You're familiar. I'm not sure.
I mostly think of Seattle for Frasier, to be honest with you, rather than Starbucks. It's one of my favorite programs.
Yeah. By the way, that view doesn't exactly exist. It's like a composite of different views in his.
Oh, really?
Yeah. All the pieces, just not in one.
Yeah. Anthony Mullins, getting freshly cooked short crust pastry on the nose. That was harder to say than I thought it would be. Andrew Thewlis, what are you doing to me? This is all these words. Cherry and butter biscuit, lovely and smooth. Chris Dagnan, cherries, fire warmth. Water softens the fire, but quite a kick. Alex Antonio, the cacao really ramps up the more you sip it. Real Boinga, the smoke is later in the finish. Steve Con Williams getting leather, dark baking chocolate, and pancakes. Anthony Mullins, the smoke really subtle on the finish. So a lot of people picking up that smoke note on the finish, like this subtle kind of lingering smoke note that seems to be kind of wafting away towards the end of the palate. Andrew Thewlis, me too. The peat slowly moves through at the end. There's a lot coming in now. Pete Burrett, this dram has a delightful mix of flavors. A drop of water expands the flavors, increases the sweetness, but chocolate still dominates. Lovely. Greg Buick, I got smoke and a hint of peat on the nose, but lovely fruit coming through on the palate. Steve Conway is amazing. Thank you. Downside I really like, and that means pour and sip can't claim 2 bourbons that I like in one tasting. Yeah, well, it just goes to show, really, like, you know, it's very unlikely if you like whiskey, you're just going to dislike all bourbons that have ever been made. It's probably just going to be something for you. And when you try them, you go, oh, actually, that's pretty nice.
Well, and something to sort of point out, which I realize I didn't mention before, because the question about being American and making bourbon, perhaps the question may be, why didn't we make bourbon? Why did we focus on single malt? And really the reason is because we have one of the best barley growing regions in the world, and this up in the Skagit Valley, and then on the eastern side of the state in the Palouse. So we are surrounded by barley, and frankly, corn doesn't grow very well here. So Dan already mentioned it. You grow with, or you distill what's around you, and so barley makes the most sense for us, and it's also easily accessible. And then we can have the direct connection with the farmers instead of having to, you know, order something that is across the country.
That makes total sense. Oh, is it a question?
Westland is, you know, always what has them is a first and foremost, you know, single malt distillery. It's not an American distillery that decided to do a single malt. It's, you know,
right.
Yeah.
A couple more taste notes. Jim Clancy saying it's an is that your chair, Jake?
No, no, sorry, it is above me. It's my colleagues walking around in the office.
What are they doing up there?
It's I know. So this is a 100-year-old building.
Yeah.
So I'm so sorry. I didn't realize I picked the worst spot.
Listening, and I've just been wondering who and what is making that noise. If there's a ghost where you are, Jake, or something, or a chair. But okay, it's the people upstairs. Can you shout and just tell them to just keep it down for a second?
Knock it off, guys.
Knock it off. Whatever they're doing.
Sitting with a broom.
We can't specify what they're doing. Jim Clancy, it's an explosion of flavors. Lovely. Never had anything like it. There you go. That's probably what you want to hear. That's probably a great comment, isn't it? Never had anything like it. That's.
I mean, that was kind of my reaction when I first had the American Oak a few years back. Yeah, I'm a really big fan of it. My colleague Henry said, what did he say about these Geronson casks? So yeah, like you said, French sweet wine, but he says it's famous for its high acidity and marmalade tang. So there you are. If you've got any sort of marmalade tang coming through, which I think is probably going to perfectly dovetail with the sort of chocolatey Westland style. I think someone said pie crust or something similar to that in one of the comments, and that's another thing that I always get.
Malcolm Tucker palette donuts dusted in cacao powder, chili heat finishing with more chocolate. And Greg Buick is asking, how would Westland compare themselves to Copperworks? I had a chance to visit Copperworks on a holiday to Seattle a few years ago.
Yeah, Copperworks, it's a great local distillery that we are friends with. I think they do a few different things where they're exploring also some other varietals of things, but they are definitely focusing a little bit more on maintaining a sort of Scottish approach. So their stills are different. They have four-side stills. Ours are hybrid stills from Vendôme. And also they don't mash and ferment, or they do ferment themselves, but they don't mash themselves. So they work with local breweries for that, although that is an ongoing thing that they're working on, I believe. And so they also have quite a different flavor. Just they don't have the same type of yeast that we use. So what they produce tastes vastly different from what we do. And because of how they mash with these local breweries, they get different flavors along the way. But they do a lot of sherry finished whiskeys as well. They try to have one in rotation and still have some peated as well. So they're kind of exploring in another way. But I think that's one of the things that's really great about our region in general is there's a lot of up and coming distilleries, also some more established distilleries, in Oregon as well, that we all are exploring in our own way, which I think is really fun. Like regionality in American single malt is fascinating. Like what our friends, down in Arizona or Colorado or Texas or Virginia are doing is different from what we're doing. And I love that we get to explore that with such a country as big as ours, because of the different climates and raw materials. So
it's great as well, because as a category, that was not something that was majorly a thing a few years ago. I don't know, was it Balcones who were kind of one of the first, maybe?
For American single malt. So we actually, us as well as Virginia and Balcones and a few others started the American Single Malt Whiskey Commission in 2016. So we've been petitioning the TTB arm of the government to create the definition of American single malt. So we can make sure that customers really know what they're getting, but without limiting innovation. So there would be a few standards that we'd recommend for such a thing that I think they will pass, but again, without limiting what everybody can do, because everybody has a different climate and a different setup with production. So we don't want to make it difficult, but we want to make sure that the consumer knows they're not getting just whatever with single malt slapped on the label,
Yeah, totally. So when would that be passed, or when's that happening?
Ooh, what a great question. We have gone through all of the hoops, and they've had the public comment period last spring. And they told us forever that the fall it was going to come out. So all of these brands were sort of ramping up, and all the magazines, whiskey magazines, were ramping up things like American Single Malt. This is now going to be a thing. And then nothing. So we don't know when they're going to announce that. They may or may not be distracted by other things happening this year. I don't know. But
presumably that's one of the recommendations would be for it to be 100% malt, like single malt elsewhere. Yeah. So 100% single malt. And, obviously made at one distillery still, at least the fermenting and the distillation. We're not recommending that it be in only new oak barrels, because again, that doesn't work for all colleagues. And again, we want to open it up to be a wider variety of flavors. And we do have the limitation of it can't be distilled above 80% ABV or bottled lower than 40%. It can't be matured in anything larger than a 700 liter barrel, which that's fine. I think that
so there won't be any real limitations on the casks that could be used to finish this stuff, like there is in Scotland. Okay.
Exactly. So not the same limitations that SWA has, and we also would not have a minimum maturation requirement in terms of age, because again, our friends down in Arizona and Texas, we would not want to hamstring them that way because they would have virtually no whiskey in the barrel in some stages. So
yeah. I think the last thing I sort of wanted, I don't know if we touched on it, but to maybe elaborate on a bit more, is I think congratulations are in order that you're now a B Corp.
Yes.
So we've had McNean on, I don't know if you know, there,
I love
high B Corp score, and Gladdy as well, a B Corp, I think. So we've had them on talking a little bit about that before. But I think it'd be great to hear a little bit about that, and then also you've talked a little bit about the barley and sustainability there. But I think last time we were chatting with Matt, you're trying to up the percentage of I don't know what the terminology is exactly, sort of non-commercial barley.
Non-commodity barleys. So B Corp has been an ongoing goal, and we achieved it this year, and it's been wonderful. Our whole team had been working on that, and it's been something we've been working on for a long time, and we're really proud of it because it's not very common.
No,
especially especially in the US. We also got really high points on that, so we were very, very proud of that because it does very much align with our views on sustainability and protecting the environment and the region of which we are in, because everything comes from our area. So that's one bit, but I will say that in terms of the non-commodity grains, that is something that Matt is extraordinarily passionate about, so I'm not surprised that he talked about that extensively. But we do have a lot of these systems where we work directly with the farmers and say, okay, what kind of barley would you like to grow for your rotational crop? Because barley is an excellent rotational crop. Up in the Skagit Valley, there are over 80 different types of commercial crops that are grown, and some of them drain a lot of nutrients out of the soil, and barley is a good rotational crop for that, and then it can fix some of those nutrients back into the soil. But previously they would either just have to till it back in or sell it as feed because it was too plump and too big to work in the commercial system, because all those machines have a certain size of grain that they can work with. So sort of a challenge with that, but as we've been able to work with them and have different craft maltsters come on board to actually work with those grains, so we can work with them directly, the farmers, and have this really great relationship where they know that they are going to be paid for the barley that they're putting in the ground no matter what happens, and we know that we're getting a high quality grain that we desperately want in terms of flavor and works well in the environment. So we also have a lot of partnerships with WSU, for example, the Washington State University, and the Bread Lab up in Skagit Valley, where we had funded a student who did research for us for 4 or 5 years about barley and, working with and breeding barley in the old fashioned way to make sure that they would be more environmentally resilient, because our summers are getting hotter and drier, and we need barley that's going to be able to withstand that and still work well for everyone involved. So it's not just about yield, it's about flavor, but it's also about sustainability of the systems that we are all working within.
Cool.
Awesome.
And just, I don't know if we were going to touch on this, but other things that are coming up for Westland. So for those of you who are now, is everyone who on this call, are they all in the UK or is it also elsewhere in the world?
We're all the members are in the UK. Yeah.
Okay, great. Good to know. But yeah, we do have some other, we have some new SKUs, some new bottles that are coming in the fall. So look for that. But if you want to keep up on what's going on with us at the distillery or around the world, just follow us on Westland Whiskey on Instagram or newsletter, things like that. I'm Will Run for Whiskey on Instagram as well. And I post about things there, but we have really great posts about those upcoming things that we're working on. And we will have more expressions of those other explorations of raw ingredients. So Gariana, Calere, and Solum, those will be coming out every year as well.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah. Lots to look forward to.
Mm-hmm.
Of course.
Yeah.
Remember to grab your exclusive bottle in the member store, everybody. Yeah. Because there are 194 bottles of this absolute treat. And then,
that's a special one.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
Hopefully we'll see you at the end.
Cheers.
Thank you.
It's two cracking American whiskies.
Yeah, absolutely, and different as well.
Completely different.
Completely different. So two completely different things. So I think everyone just thinks if it comes from America, it will just be this kind of bourbon maker's mark kind of Jim Beam kind of vibe. That's what they associate it with, and then realize, wow, there's loads of different categories of bourbon, but an American single malt. However, saying that, we're about to head for something completely different.
Yeah.
Completely and utterly different. Steve Howdy Doody wants the Instagram address for Westland again. When we're back, I'm sure we'll get it. But I bet you can find it on Instagram. If we don't tell you, I'm just convinced you can get it.
I've just seen Alex Battersea's. I've written one of the best as their tasting note for that one, which is
toasted spice and smoked cherry slice. That's a great rhyme. Whole. Who left the milk out? You got that right first time, didn't you? I saw whole the milk out. No, who left the milk out? Great name. Love that one. Are you? Yeah. Right. So I think it's time to invite our last guest on. I would do it. I feel so wrong not having the controls. It's like a lack of
I have the power today.
A lack of control thing for me, and a control freak and struggle. And hello, Andrew. How are you doing?
Hey guys, what's going on? Yeah, doing well.
Yeah, really good, thank you. And we're not speaking to you from America, right? Unless I'm wrong.
No, I'm a really tropical place called Scotland. It's
back
the
home,
best weather ever up here.
It's summer, right? What temperature is it for you right now in summer?
Oh, I don't know, but it's literally just every single day. This could be the worst summer I've ever experienced in my entire life. It's just constant rain. But
to be honest, it's the same here. It's absolutely the same here.
There's a lot of people saying today's rain's tomorrow's whiskey. So there you go.
Yeah, exactly. That's a famous saying.
Take solace. Yeah,
we'll take solace in that. So talk to us firstly a bit about yourself and how you got in the industry and found yourself in your current role. Were you a musician as well? Was that the theme of today?
Well, weirdly enough, I played bagpipes when I was younger. So typical Scottish. This is the fitting the stereotype into whiskey. Bagpipes. I also play golf as well. So there you go. Just everything. But yeah, basically how I got into this job. I'm from Campbeltown. I'm born and raised here. I grew up in a house 5 minutes, like a 5-minute walk away from Springbank, Glengyle. Well, Glengyle's a distillery, Kilkerran's a single malt, and then Glen Scotia. So I grew up around whiskey, but I never really knew that there was such a massive demand for whiskey. Like my family used to drink. Well, my family still drink Tennant's beer and vodka on nights out. Like it's not a massive thing to like the local people anyway drinking whiskey. I think even like round the distillery as well. Like people, the tourists are absolutely shocked. Like that. It's probably 95% of the people that work in the distillery hate drinking whiskey.
That's outrageous.
I think that's part of the job interview. There's like a special question or like a box you have to tick. You have to say that you don't like drinking whiskey, and then you're allowed to handle the stills and stuff like that.
Right, great. So now I know why I failed. I said I liked whiskey. What an issue.
But I think that's how I ended up in this job. I'm actually one of the weird guys at the distillery that actually like drinking this stuff. So
you pass the test where they leave you next to a whiskey glass and then go back and come back 5 minutes later and see if you.
And everyone's just like, do you like it? I don't know. We don't like whiskey, and they just ask you, Andrew. Like, we'll take your word for it. It's good. Whatever. He's the only one who likes whiskey out here. Well, talk to us a bit about, because it's Campbeltown. What happened to Campbeltown? You're born there. It was once the whiskey capital of the world. Was it 34 distilleries, something like that? And now there's 3. So what happened?
You've been doing your research. You've hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, well, yes. I love Campbeltown, but I've never been.
So goodness sake. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, well, exactly.
People
so act as the kind of tourist board right now for everybody with Campbeltown.
Yeah. So some places in the world are in the middle of nowhere. Campbeltown is at the end of nowhere. Basically, I think in years gone by, Campbeltown was sort of seen as the place that you stumble across when you're going to Islay. The whiskey fans would go to Islay. And then if you don't turn right at the Kennet Craig ferry terminal, and you just keep on traveling 40 minutes down the road further, you'll eventually come to Campbeltown. But nowadays, like, I should say, when I first started working in 2018, it was in between my 3rd and 4th year at university. And basically, they called it an internship. It was not an internship. It was basically just working in the shop and doing tours and tastings all summer. But I had no idea what whiskey was. I thought whiskey was White and Mackay and like blends and stuff like that. But then you go into Springbank and Kilkerran, and you get handed these absolutely beautiful whiskies. And I'm a personality that gets a bit hooked on things. I get very obsessive about things and get quite nerdy and geeky as well. So I just went full in. And the thing was, in 2018, you could come into Springbank Distillery shop or the local Cadenhead shop, and you could fill up your car on any bottles that you wanted, whether that's the 12-year-old Springbank, 15, 18, 21. I remember looking at the shelves at one point in time, there's like 25-year-olds and 30-year-olds like gathering dust on the shelves. That's only 2018. But like, as soon as COVID hit and people were in their houses and they had a little bit more disposable income and they were watching YouTube videos and reviewers, and I think the power of the internet and a few other things like sort of made it skyrocket a little bit, and it's been crazy. The demand's been crazy recently.
Yeah, we see that at Master of Malt. Absolutely the same. I mean, yeah, is that what you put it down to? Sort of people in their houses just being trying to work out.
That's a little theory of mine, to be honest. I think it just took a while for people to catch on to the quality anyway. But Springbank was always seen, and Kilkerran was always sort of seen as the whiskey drinkers' whiskey, if that makes sense. It's more of like the anoraks, the enthusiasts that would.
What is it about it that because we're talking about why is it that is the case? Are we talking about the very traditional values of Springbank, the independent nature of Springbank and Kilkerran, the floor maltings, the very small team that work there? It still feels very steeped in history and tradition, but also just making good quality liquid. What is it about it that attracts whiskey lovers? Because if anyone doesn't know, and what you're kind of insinuating, not Kilkerran as well, is that it's basically hard for you guys to keep up with the level of demand now for these products, considering you're such a small distillery, and there's just, it's skyrocketed, as you said, and it's now impossible to get these bottles just pretty much straight up for most of them. So what is that about? What do you plan on doing about? What does the distillery plan on doing about that? Is there something they thought? Or they just
how many times do I change this question, Andy?
Yeah, no, I'm asking. These are all personal questions that I've just been like, oh, finally, I've got someone from Springbank. I'm trying to ask a professional question. Now I'm going to go personal, and I'm like, what are we going to do about this? I want a bottle of Springbank, and I can't get any.
Hey, well, I think the first point is quite a massive thing to think about. It's basically why is there such a demand there? Like, why are people searching these bottles out? I think it comes back to basically in the 1960s. The recently late chairman was a guy called Mr. Headley Wright. He passed away last year. It's coming up to a year actually. And he had taken over the distillery from his father in the 1960s. And then he basically saw the extremely bad times in the whiskey industry, and he saw Springbank through the 1980s. And the way that he did that was basically shut down the distillery for about 8 years. From 1979 up until 87, there was 0 liters of alcohol made at the Springbank distillery. We're still feeling the ramifications of that decision today. Like, the oldest cask in our warehouse is from 1988. I think if it's still there. But basically, when he decided to reopen in 1988, it was a case of, let's limit production. Let's do everything the old-fashioned way. Springbank is the only distillery in Scotland, maybe in the entire world, as far as I'm aware, that does literally 100% of the process of making whiskey on site at the distillery in Campbeltown. There's no fields around the distillery. It's all gravel and concrete and houses and things. It's right in the middle of Campbeltown. So we don't grow the barley, but 95% of the barley comes in from about Inverness area. It's a company called Highland Grain Limited. And then we buy about 5% of the barley from local farms around Campbeltown. But yeah, every single process from the malting. So we've got malting floors, 2 malting floors, 23 tons of barley malted per week. It's a massive bottleneck for us. These are self-imposed limits. I mean, we could buy in all the pre-malted barley we wanted in the world, but it's a case of we want to do everything the old-fashioned traditional way. And obviously the still house is on site, the warehouses, every single cask of Springbank, Hazelburn, Longrow, Kilkerran is distilled and matured and actually bottled on site as well. We've got a bottling plant, which the whole thing about doing it this way is harkening back to old traditions, but also keeping people employed. I think when Mr. Wright took over the distillery, I'd be shocked if there was 20 people working for the entire company. So J&A Mitchell's the entire company, then Springbank Distillery, Kilkerran, and then Cadenhead's our independent bottler, Scotland's oldest independent bottler. The thing was, we have just crossed the barrier. I think it was about 106 employees between all the companies nowadays. And it's about keeping people in a job, stimulating the Campbeltown economy, and hopefully making good whiskey as well.
Yeah, so. I mean, and this definitely is. When you're dealing with these companies, so you've got the Springbank Distillery and then Glengyle, how much time is spent? I think I read that you do like 3 months production of Kilkerran and then head towards Springbank.
Yeah, so the annual schedule basically looks like the first 9 months of the year, from January to like mid-September-ish, we're making Springbank at Springbank, Hazelburn, and Longrow at the Springbank Distillery. Yeah. It actually starts out January is Hazelburn, February is Longrow, and then the rest up until mid-September is Springbank. And then the final 3 months of the year, like October through to December, we're making it's the same production staff. They just
move over
to Glengyle and Kilkerran. But the thing was, like, see, before 2018, we were in a good year making 100,000 litres of pure alcohol at Springbank, and then about 45,000 litres of alcohol at Glengyle. Glengyle only used to be in operation for about 6 weeks of the entire year before 2018. But since 2018, I think this will answer your next question. When you're talking about how do we get more bottles. We've decided to essentially double production, or more than double. So now at Springbank Distillery, we're making around 260,000 litres per annum. And then at Glengyle, we're making about 92,000 litres per annum. So 2 times 0 is still 0. But the thing is, hopefully there's more whiskey in the shelves in the future. I'm saying these numbers and they might sound big, but some distilleries...
No, I was about to say, in comparison, like if you put that in comparatively to something like Glenmorangie or something like that, you probably see the size of how much smaller that is than, the major distilleries. So that's really great to know. I mean, I love it. But one of the things I love about this stuff is just Campbeltown in itself. What is the house style of what is it that's defining of Campbeltown in the taste and the smell of the whiskey?
Yeah, well, I think Springbank and Kilkerran are very, very different, but there's also some commonalities in there.
Yeah,
like Springbank, the way that the stills are designed, we've got a direct fired wash still, we've got a worm tub condenser connected to the middle still, and the line arms at Springbank are slightly angled downward. It creates much more of an oily caramelization, full-bodied, robust. It's quite an old-fashioned style of whiskey. And then at Kilkerran, when they designed the distillery in the early 2000s, and we've only been making Kilkerran since 2004. It's actually our 20th anniversary this year. So when they designed Kilkerran, or they wanted to build Glengyle Distillery and start producing Kilkerran, they didn't want to make a miniature Springbank. They wanted to do something different. So they want to make a lighter, fruitier, floral style of whiskey. And our 2 stills are powered by steam, like the steam coils, shell and tube condensers, and the line arms are angled slightly upwards as well. So you're creating a lot more reflux. The heavy alcohol vapors, they think it's too hard and fall right back down into the still and are redistilled. The lighter vapors can escape into the condenser and turn back into the spirit. So it's essentially just creating a lighter, more fruity, floral style. Slightly less oily than Springbank, but there's still quite a lot of oil there, I would say. The commonalities, I feel, anyway, and what makes Campbeltown as a region, I think Glen Scotia's got quite a lot of it as well. It's the sea saltiness. It's the
exactly it. Yeah.
It's the salinity. It's the minerality.
It's the coastal character. But what is that? Is that just a location thing of like being by the sea? There's just this influence that flows into, because you're obviously not putting seawater into the distillate. Do you know what I mean? So what is that? Is it just how the warehouses just get that sea air that comes in from Campbeltown and gives the whiskey this unique taste?
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly why Mr. Wright, the old chairman, said, if it's going to be distilled in Campbeltown, it's going to be matured in Campbeltown. He just felt the maturation environment is absolutely perfect for making whiskey.
Yeah,
we'll lose about 1.52% of the volume inside the cask each year.
They'd love that at Bardstown. That would be great for them, only that 1.2%.
Yeah, exactly. But we're less than a mile from the Atlantic Ocean. Yeah. You're getting an awful lot of that sea character coming into the cask. Like, I always think of it as basically, as the volume decreases in the cask every single year, what's being replaced is air, and what's in the air, all of these different flavors. Exactly. When you're walking down the seafront, like 2 minutes outside my house, you're just getting like so much wind wafted into your face, and all the flavors and all the seaweed and the saltiness, and it's all just.
When you walk out your house and you go for a walk, you're literally just smelling Kilkerran and Springbank in the air.
Yeah, and I am like a stone's throw from Glen Scotia right now, and basically you can see the chimneys working, and you can smell the malt and all these different things. It's really quite a cool place to come and visit. Anyway, yeah. I would highly recommend it.
Yeah, I was about to say, very interested to come. I can't believe I've never been. But
I'll run through some notes, Andy.
Yeah. I was going to say, first we should probably just talk about this dram in itself, the heavily peated.
Well, yeah, okay, let's introduce it, and then
let's introduce the dram
for the members.
Yeah. So this whiskey that we have right here, this is Kilkerran Heavily Peated, batch 9, and it's bottled at 59.2% ABV. This batch in particular was released in November of last year, and the cask makeup is 90% bourbon cask and then 10% sherry cask. And when we say sherry cask, that just means Oloroso. Yeah. Like that's our control style of sherry. Most of the sherry butts or the sherry hogsheads that you see if you ever come to the distillery will be Oloroso. If it's PX, Manzanilla, Palo Cortado, Fino, whatever, Amontillado, we will tell you that fact, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And we're actually not currently on batch 9 of Kilkerran Heavily Peated. We're currently on batch 10. That was just released in June last month. And then we'll have batch 11 coming out probably about November time. So we essentially
managed to sort of earmark and hold some for our special pour and sippers. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, I'm sure we'll be able to get you a bottle somehow. Don't worry. But yeah, so we essentially release 2 batches of Kilkerran Heavily Peated every single year. And for me, the tasting notes, when I was smelling it anyway or nosing it, the first time I tried this batch like a couple of weeks ago or a week in preparation for this tasting, and it might have just been the bottle that I was trying to. It was open. It was quite oxidized. There wasn't an awful lot of peat on the nose, but it's quite prominent tonight for myself anyway. It's quite a malty sort of nose for me. I get an awful lot of like shortbread crust and all these different things. But the peat is absolutely massive on the palate. Obviously, being a heavily peated whiskey. Sea saltiness.
Do you know what the levels are to which it's peated? The ppm levels.
Yeah, so it's a variety of different levels of peating. It changed basically in 2015 was the very first batch of Kilkerran heavily peated, and that was barley that we had malted ourselves, and we had literally that was at Springbank Distillery. The barley was laid out on the floors for about 6 days, and then the kiln was fired up and the peat was added onto the fire, and we were basically trying every single trick in the book to try and pack in as much peat as possible into the barley. And we got samples back 83 ppm before distillation. Anyway, okay. So that's us doing everything that we know possible. I have no idea how Octomore gets above 100 ppm, but
yes. Someone mentioned that actually in the comments.
Oh yeah.
I'm wondering if it's like the Octomore where its age is carefully balanced as actually the amount of peat would ruin it if left for too long. So yeah, but Octomore releases a different age statements. So Jake, where are we started here? I'm trying to work out where
yeah, sorry, so I can run through some
coming through.
It's after everyone was talking about how bad their summers were or how much it rained everywhere. Peter Gilmore had pear and shortbread. I just you were talking about shortbread just then. Clive was getting some raisins, orange smoke, some honey. We had a bit of smoky peat by the campfire on the seaside, so that's very Campbeltown scene. Custard cream biscuits, which I totally get. Malcolm Tucker got some barbecue smoke, but then underneath he's finding Madagascar vanilla, some salinity. So again, we've talked about the salinity. Real Boinga, apples and pears with some spice and smoke, spicy apple tart, custard and cinnamon. So everyone's getting that kind of vanilla-y note coming through as well.
I think
saying, I don't think the peat is as heavy on the taste and finish as he actually got on the nose. I think there's a few comments about kind of obviously everyone's getting the peat, but what does this one say? It's a thick haze rather than a plume of smoke, which is quite nice.
What I think as well is happening there is it's like the peat is slightly different as well than to what people expect from like.
And also, it's 59.2%. Remember as well.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
This will probably transform a little bit with a drop of water.
With a drop of water for this one for sure. Where is the peat from?
So if we're making it ourselves, so that was I was going to move on. Basically, the first batch of Kilkerran heavily peated in 2015. That's the oldest cask that we have are from 2015. That first batch that was done by ourselves using peat that we source nowadays from St. Fergus Moss, just outside Peterhead. And then it's not local peat because after 34 working distilleries in Campbeltown, the local peat pile got basically demolished. So I think there is local peat, but it's filled with sand. And if you put that into a kiln, you're just going to make glass, to be honest. So I think that was tested out a number of years ago, but it just did not work at all. Or if you're looking to make glass, it was good anyway. So. But yeah, the subsequent batches have been that pre-malted barley has come from Baird's maltsters in Inverness, and I'm assuming Baird's would get their peat from around Inverness as well, or at least the northeast of Scotland, because that's the thing. We malt our own barley for Springbank, Hazelburn, Long Row, and then Standard Kilkerran. Standard Kilkerran is the exact same recipe as Springbank malted barley. 6 hours of peat smoke and 30 hours of hot air. It's just a lightly peated barley recipe. We use that for Springbank. We use that for Kilkerran, like the Kilkerran 12-year-old and the 16-year-old and all these things. But we buy in pre-malted barley for the heavily peated that you're trying right now, and then the Kilkerran unpeated. And most of that Kilkerran unpeated goes into Campbeltown Lock. If you've tasted that before.
Yeah, I have tried that.
Yeah, we had it on Pour and Sip. It's another.
Yeah, I was about to say we had it on Pour and Sip.
Yeah, another great whiskey.
Yeah. There's loads of comments coming in now. Where did you get to, Jake?
There were lots of comments. I mean, a lot of people. Oh yeah, here's the what we were talking about, the thick haze of smoke rather than the plume. So Chris is agreeing with him. More malted milk biscuits from Malcolm Tucker. I think that kind of area is a really great note. So yeah, some more. The smoke doesn't underpower the biscuity notes underneath. Yeah, so people enjoying that kind of balance. Beautiful dram.
Pexman wants to buy them all. Strong box, he says.
Yes.
Lol. So Malcolm Tucker's asking, is Glengyle going to start running 12 months a year in 2 years' time, production-wise? I think he's talking about.
That's a fantastic question. The short answer is not in the near future anyway. There are plans to get both distilleries operational 100% of the year, but it's basically our chairman, when he first started up the second distillery, it was a case of following the sort of just-in-time business model where you're just creating enough whiskey to supply the demand instead of just pumping out millions and millions and millions of liters of alcohol, investing millions of pounds into it, and then hopefully you can sell it 3 years, 10 years down the road. So it was basically like build up gradually and see where we are. The thing is as well, currently at the Glengyle distillery, we have the original buildings, the original malt floors are there, but if we put 10 tons of barley on each of those floors, they would just crash right down. Essentially, there's so much structural damage. So that's why we've had to basically bring in malted barley from Springbank and then buy in pre-malted barley from Bayards as well, just because we don't have malt floors. So we are thinking about building a drum maltings up at the Glengyle distillery.
Yes. Sorry, I've just had this like light bulb, like deja vu moment of like, I did know that. Yeah, go on.
Nice. So that's one thing that we could do, and that's basically once that's operational, just flick a button, and then it's all the malted barley you would ever want at a really high standard. But the thing is, as well, I think our chairman nowadays wants to harken back to more of the authenticity, and he would love to just invest in building or restructuring the malt floors and doing everything ourselves. And I think that would lend into more of our values as well, as employing more people, because you would need two people per shift to do the maltings.
Yeah,
three shifts a day, so that's 6 people, and then people to cover them when they're sick on holidays. So what's that, 8-9 people instead of buying a malt drum, and you might employ 1 or 2 people to operate that. So
I think the chairman's right. Yeah. I think the chairman's right. I think it works that way.
So it's these things that are going on in our minds as well. And then also the thing is, we if we want to produce more whiskey, we have to work backwards. We have to think, well, we're not allowed to send casks off to Glasgow, Edinburgh, Perthshire to get matured. All the casks have to be matured in Campbeltown, and we are already like so close to capacity. It's scary. I think there's 22,500 casks maturing on site at the moment. So essentially, we just need to build more warehouses and all of these things. But one thing that we are doing to increase production at the moment, I talked about we doubled production since 2018 consistently every single year. But the current bottling hall that we have is right in the courtyard, right at the car park at Springbank. That was set up in, I think, the 80s or the 90s, and is basically not able to handle that increase in production. So if you come up to Glengyle right now, you will see an area that is just flattened outside of the distillery, and there's lots of foundation work going on at the moment. We're building a more modern, state-of-the-art bottling plant, essentially a bigger one, dry goods dispatch facility, all in one up at the Glengyle distillery. And that will handle the entire company, so Springbank, Campbeltown, and Kilkerran as well. So our eventual goal is to get both distilleries operational 100% of the year, but it's a long way down the road, quite frankly.
Yeah, I mean, we're here for it. We're just here for the good whiskey, to be honest with you. And this is a great jam, and a lot of people are talking about how much they like this jam, and a lot of people are talking about that Oxmoor's bottled at 45 ppm usually, apparently. Though Steve Williams saying Oxmoor can hit 309 ppm, but I don't know if that's
309.
That's crazy.
that's crazy. But so you've kind of mentioned about the future for Kilkerran is kind of just getting more out there. Are there any other plans in the pipeline at all?
Yeah. So we're actually going to be building another distillery.
Well, there you go.
So 2028 is the 200th year anniversary of Springbank. So big part of the celebrations are laying the foundations for the next distillery in 2028. And speaking to my boss, it seems like it's just going to be a year-long party. Lots of things happen in 2028. So if there was a time to come up to the distillery, it would be that year. I don't know how long it would take to get the new distillery up and running, but we run what's called the Whiskey School right now. I don't know if you've heard of that before, but it's basically people come and pay us money and they stay at our accommodation. That's like a 2-minute walk away from the distillery, and they learn how to make whiskey the old-fashioned way for an entire week. And then there's an exam at the end and you get your diploma and all these things. But it's basically a crash course in how to make whiskey. And I think this new distillery would play into that, and maybe people would have a little bit more use of the stills, controlling the cut points, making whiskey the way they want to make whiskey at the moment. Basically, if you do the whiskey school right now, you're watching people and helping out where needed and things like that. But you don't want to be messing around with the cut points when you're making Springbank and Hazelburn and Long Row and all these things. So the plans for the future, most certainly. But for this year, for Kilkerran's anniversary, there's a bunch of things happening. The 20th anniversary, basically, actually, to this weekend, we have decided to host a bit of a gig, a concert. We managed to get like a local band that plays in Campbeltown called Fling, and then the Red Hot Chili Pipers.
You're a member of the Red Hot Chili Pipers. This is a plug.
In another life, maybe, yeah.
There was a comment earlier. I don't know who it was now. I'm sure someone said that, yeah, he's a really good bagpiper. So I don't know if you've actually, there's someone who has seen you at work. Yeah.
Any excuse bagpipes, that's it.
Stewie Baby has said he's awesome on the bagpipes.
There you go. Yeah.
I had Stewie over for a few drams in the house last year.
There you go. He's been paid to say that.
And then also we've got Travis coming to play. You heard of Travis before?
Yeah, well, it will kind of obviously rain on them for that period of time, as it has been raining in general. That was terrible. Sorry, I'll get my
I like your heads.
Absolutely awful.
So that's what we're going on this weekend. It should be amazing. And then other things, we've got basically single casks coming out for different markets across the world. I think it depends on which country gets which cask, but there will be a bunch of sister casks. One of them is going to be 17-year-old refill sherry. I think the UK is getting one of those. And then there'll be 15-year-old fresh bourbon, then an 8-year-old heavily peated single cask as well, I think from that initial year of 2015. So lots of things happening for the 20th anniversary. We introduced Kilkerran warehouse tastings in Campbeltown this year. So if you do come to Campbeltown, you can basically do tours of all the distilleries. You can do our more expensive tours, the barley to bottle, £250, but we will take you on an all access tour of the distillery. You can taste 3 of the oldest casks that we've got on site straight from the cask. Incredible, and then you get a blending session and blend your own Springbank cask strength as well. So it's pretty decent value, to be honest. I think your lunch is thrown in there as well, so it's not bad.
See, no one's going to want to wait till 2028. It's
No.
I'll go now and then I'll go back in 2028.
I'll still be running in 28. Don't worry about that.
Well, that all sounds very, very exciting. All of that, I have to say. That sounds great. But it's been great talking to you, Andrew. I'm very conscious of time because we've still got 2 more drams to make. My only other question was, where can I get hold of the latest release of the 12? Can you sort me out, please? Because I've been told it's amazing of the Springbank. I've been told it's the best one they've released, the best batch of the cask strength for a long time, but I can't get a bottle anywhere.
We'll speak after, don't worry.
Thank you very much. Okay, Andrew, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. You've been great.
Cheers, guys.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you in a bit. Bye.
Jake, I was literally just going there to change because I'm just so used to kind of being in control of the buttons.
I was enjoying watching you getting more and more fraught during that, being like, they're releasing what? They're releasing what? How am I going to get it?
Yeah. Well, that's the problem. How am I going to get it?
But it is worth stressing again, that, and we, Master and Malt, we can't keep this stuff on the shelves.
No.
Demand is huge, so it's awesome that we get to have it in this set.
Yeah, I was about to say to get it in. Yeah, exactly. Most times with Master of Always, it's gone. It's just gone.
It does. It flies out. We do have some bottles in the store of this.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a real treat. So
yeah, absolutely. So real treat for us all to be trying this. But I think we should move on because there are other whiskies out there and bourbons. And what are we going to next? We're doing Four Roses.
Yeah, let's fly through these because I'm conscious of time as well.
Yeah, really conscious of time. Four Roses, I'm not going to drink this one just because on the basis that I feel like after that Kilkerran, Four Roses small batch select is just going to not get what it deserves. Because I have to say, Four Roses is probably one of my favourite bourbons. Just in general, favourite companies. If you ever get a chance to try barrel proof Four Roses, you're in for like the biggest treat because it's just usually absolutely amazing. But the interesting thing about Four Roses, which are based in Lawrenceburg, so right in Kentucky, is basically they make 10 different recipes. That's pretty much what is really, and all their different, releases are based on these 10 recipes. And they have 5 different yeast strains, 2 different mash bills, and with that they have 10 different recipes. The thing is, they're always written on the bottles, and they're usually seen with letters like OBSEK and O, and I can't remember what they stand for. If I'm completely honest with you, you will find that all out on the Four Roses website if you want to know what
they've got super catchy names. Yeah,
they're not super catchy names at all, but it's cool to see them on the bottles and just be aware of them. Basically, if you're drinking something you like from Four Roses, you can check out one of the 10 recipes that they've used. This one we're drinking is the small batch select. So they have like a lot of core range stuff. So there's the small batch select, there's the small batch, there's the single barrel one that they release. But this is a small batch select, and it's really good. It's much more of a rye forward recipe that they use for this one. It's 52% ABV. They use 6 of those 10 recipes in this one. Again, you can check that out on the website. It's kind of an easy sipping, rye forward, a little bit spicy, a little bit peppery bourbon, and it's really, really nice. I think Four Roses is usually a majorly solid shout if you want to try a good bourbon that's not, I don't know, Maker's Mark or Jim Beam. So basically something like this. It's just a really, really good one. And if you do ever get a chance to try the barrel proof, please do. You will not regret it. It's amazing. And they're usually bottled at something crazy like 65 or 66%. So yeah, that's my 2 cents in Four Roses.
And obviously, like you say, that's made with rye as opposed to the wheated bourbon we had earlier. So
we had a
bourbons are different.
Wheated for, so it's still pretty high on the corn, obviously, but yeah, it's like about 20-something% rye on this one.
I think that's only a couple of years old, that for us as well. It's relatively new still. Yeah. Anyway, that's your one. I'll talk about Noble Rebel.
Noble Rebel.
Noble Rebel is it's a blended malt, so that means it's made up of different single malts, but it's from different distilleries, but it's still 100% malted barley. It's from Loch Lomond Group, so obviously Loch Lomond Distillery, unsurprisingly, which. I mean, it's almost a bit of a theme here where you just talked about Four Roses, many recipes. Loch Lomond is another place that just has loads of different styles, which is unusual.
Is it the only distillery in Scotland to have that can basically make both? I
mean, they can make So they in Scotland you usually have your single malts, and then you have grain whiskey as well, which is made in continuous column stills. It's a different beast. I think Loch Lomond's the only place that can make a blended whiskey just all on site, because usually they're just different places, right?
Yeah.
But on the single malt side, they have more traditional stills that you'd see anywhere else in Scotland, but also these slightly unusual, like straight-sided Lomond stills. I think what sort of a famous example, if you've been to Brookladdy and seen Ugly Betty, where they make the botanist gin, that's the same kind of thing. But they also have 2 cut points, which they're regularly taking. They also have cooling rings on some of these stills, which can be switched on or off for more or less reflux. They make something like 13 different styles of whiskey. It's like a Willy Wonka distillery. It's mad. So yeah, it's actually a range of blended malts, the Noble Rebel. And yeah, so these different styles are using the different ones. This one's called Orchard Outburst. It kind of does what it says in the tin. It's like super fruity. Yeah. It's a really nice, like, and for the price, like really, really nice fruity whiskey. And they use some Chardonnay wine yeast in some of the Loch Lomond component, which intensifies the fruit notes again. And then, I mean, we've just been talking about Campbeltown and the other distillery there, Glen Scotia. That's also owned by Loch Lomond, so you get like there's this little touch of salinity. The other thing they describe this as it's zingy citrus and salty sea waves. So that Glen Scotia, just a little bit of Glen Scotia bringing that salinity into play as well. So yeah, little Campbeltown link there.
Yeah, another good segue there, Jake. Well, it would have been a good segue back into Campbeltown, but we're not doing that. So,
well, we can bring Andrew back. We can bring all our guests back.
We can bring all the guests back.
That's why we're talking about 13 stars and 10 stars. I think Dan was saying they do 40 different mash bills in over in Bardstown. So that's a lot of stars.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've got robot voice back, Dan.
Oh, no.
You have to put your back in.
Yeah, I missed robot voice. I loved robot voice.
I'll come
robot
back.
Dan is my favourite version of Dan.
Oh dear.
This is this has just been, I think it might be my favourite pour and sip ever, this one, due to the all of this. But yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. Usually what I ask, firstly, we're going to ask all our guests a question. And yeah, as always, guys, please do let us know your favourite dram from this box. I've got to be honest, this is a difficult one tonight. They're always difficult, by the way, for our you guys, because obviously whiskey is subjective and there is no such thing as the best one that we like. But yeah, everyone's got their favourites. That was something that really hit me tonight. I loved drinking that. So guys, what was the one that you loved drinking? Because I think tonight is really hard because they've just been so different. Like we've literally gone, I mean, Kilkerran was just like a complete curveball after those first two in comparison, but all really, really interesting drams tonight. So exactly, Simon, this has been an amazing box. I can't pick a favourite tonight, but question for you guys, because you probably talk about your own whiskey a lot, but I'll start with you. Dan, are you okay? Are we talking to robot Dan or real Dan?
I think this is real Dan.
Real Dan, okay. It's nice to see you again. I do miss robot Dan though. What stuff have you been drinking recently that's, like something you've had recently that's really just like, wow, that was amazing. Really into what they're doing.
Yeah, I've got to point out, I took a trip to Westland a couple years ago, honestly. And, I was just blown away by their operation. And I was going to run down to my basement because I think I still have a couple things from them. But I just think similar to Bardstown, I feel like they're on this forefront of innovation and kind of exploring, pushing boundaries. But for bourbon, I really stay around that region of Bardstown. Those 11 distilleries, that's where my heart's at. And I'll usually be sipping on one of those if it's not our own.
Okay, nice to know. What about yourself, Andrew, next? You're up there.
So the favourite of the lineup tonight?
Oh, well, Andrew had the box, so you can answer that
Andrew,
one as
you
well.
had the box.
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
I'm going through them all.
You've been dramming along with us. What's been your favourite tonight, then? That's a great question. We've got our two guests on tonight who'll be really, really peed off if it's not there. So they're both sitting there.
You can't just say something else.
Should I just take the easy answer and say the Noble Rebel? Or...
Yeah.
do you know what? I absolutely loved them both, and that's the easy answer. That's a really easy answer. I love them both, but they're very, very different. Like I've never tasted a Bardstown before, but I thought like for being a bourbon, it was very, very like smooth and very, very sweet, gorgeous. And then the Westland was incredible. I needed a little bit of water, but once I did do that, like all of the sort of chocolatey notes came through. It was beautiful. Yeah.
There you go. And is there anything else you drink, Andrew, other than that's not from Campbeltown recently that you've really liked?
Oh, I'm a big proponent. I just like whiskey in general, to be honest. So a distillery that I've been testing out a lot of is Ben Romick. Really, really nice stuff. A lot of people are saying the Springbank of the space side, so I had to test that one out, and it's gorgeous. Nice stuff.
Yeah. And what about yourself from Westland?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm also a whiskey lover of all types. So I was just scanning my brain to think about which thing.
You're just going to say Bardstown now, aren't you? To repay the favour. It's actually Bardstown.
Like actually, yes, it's so wonderful.
I'm just going to go down into my basement. I've got some Bardstown in my basement.
We probably have some in the cupboard here, I'm guessing. Yeah. But I would say I do really love McNean and Brookladdy. Those are ones I like to follow just for the innovation piece.
I was about to say there's a common link there as well. There is. There's definitely a common link there.
But in terms of looking at American single malts, like there's so many great exploration is happening. But I am a big fan of Virginia Distilling, Del Bach, which they use in mesquite for their malting instead of peat. So it has this very barbecue note to it. And Balcones is always doing fun work as well. So there's just loads of different ones, but I always love to see what everybody else is coming up with and have it on my shelf too.
That's a great thing about the whiskey industry as well. There's not this kind of like, you just sort of like when someone asks you about the Seattle connection, they just expect there's this major rivalry, or like with you guys with like Glen Scotia, it's kind of like, oh, we don't talk about Glen Scotia. Do you know what I mean? But it's not that case, like at all. Yeah. It's very much, people help each other out and they want to big each other up. And that's very much the case. Jake, what about yourself? I've not ever asked you this question before because
we're not usually on together, are we? There's been a few things. We had you missed it, Andy. Or you'd have had the pack. We had the Herak last month, which is it's from the Isle of Harris.
Oh yeah. Oh sorry. Yeah. I've literally got that bottle sent to me. It's really nice.
Really, really good. So I love that last one. So I actually put that forward as sort of my whiskey of the month on Master of Malt. One I'm considering putting forward, just because I've got the bottle here this month, is I don't know if you've seen this table whiskey.
Not seen that before.
Yeah,
I love that bottle.
Yeah, it's a grain, but I think it's 35 quid or something. Really smart, like just concept and presentation, and
who's it by?
Also very yummy. Yeah.
What is it?
So it's a single grain. It's
from
Leith, but I think it's North British really. But I think there's some sherry maturation involved as well, like a small component. I'm not entirely sure. I've got the bottle. I like it. So yeah. I wasn't prepared for the question, Andy.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. But you looked quite prepared because you had the bottle right next to you. It was almost like you were waiting for the question.
There was some good stuff in arm's reach here. It's all good.
Yeah, cool. Should we read out the tasting notes? The favourites for tonight. So Stewie Baby is saying his favourite was Kilkerran, but I think there's a little bit of bias going on there because he stayed at your house, Andrew. So clearly it was the whole bagpipes thing. Who left the milk out? Like asking who my favourite child is, Anthony Mullins. Difficult one tonight, but I think the Bardstown just takes it. But it's been a great box. Real boing. And my favourite's got to be Kilkerran, and Bardstown is the best bourbon I've ever tasted. There you go, Dan. How about that? Clive Hampton. As there is a musical theme tonight, the Seattle area has produced Jimi Hendrix and Kurt Cobain, so Westland gets my votes. There you go. I did not know that Kurt Cobain was from Seattle. Chris Dagnan, to be honest, so
about varied. As famously as Frasier is, Andy.
Yeah, I was about to say, no, my only reference point of Seattle is Frasier, so as Starbucks, obviously. Steve Coleman, Chris Dagnan, to be honest, so varied. Some a sipper, some an evening warmer, some a quaffer. All good. Love that. Steve Coleman Williams, it's tough. and I've liked all three, saving the other two, but I think this Westland wins it for me tonight. Very emotive choice, though. The Eco Creds just chime with me. Kilkerran, close second. Jeremy Anderson, Kilkerran, and Bardstown for me. Stu Howdy Doody. Noble Rebel for me tonight, but very grateful for the guests tonight, for the information provided. Very informative. Pexman, Awesome Box would hate to pick one out of Bush Bardstown by a whisker, but the thinnest of whiskers. Chris Dagner. Side note, Westland, in my world, in the southwest, makes helicopters. There you go. There's that. Malcolm Tucker, I have enjoyed all the whiskies now, even the bourbon. However, I'm a Peated, so Kilkerran. If the bank balance allows, a couple more bottles will be making their way to me. Remember, if you do want to buy any of these bottles, they are all available at the Pour and Sip store for various discounts, Jake, or is it a specific
various discounts? Just the one.
Various discounts. Steve Con Williams and the Bardstown. Well, I'm shocked. First 100% American bourbon I've ever liked. The other was finished somewhere in the UK. Tony Capon, Bardstown just ahead of Kilkerran. James Morgan, just a little goes a long way, and no one can do without the cheers. Not sure what that's in reference to. Steve Con Williams, of those who have rated on the DB site, every single dram has reached 4 out of 5 mean average, so very equal. So I assume Steve Con Williams made an app for us, which is a database.
You kept track of everything we've ever had, basically.
Everything we've ever had.
You can add your rankings add your ratings in there. It's fantastic.
Yeah. So you can rate the whiskies you like, and we can find out what the best pour and sip rated dram has ever been. And it's all the ones we've had tonight, obviously. So, and Stewie Baby is saying, haha, never. That's in reference to you, Andrew, about being the bias there. But anyway, regardless, it's been a wonderful night tonight. Thank you so much, Dan. And thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Thank you. Jake, this has been our first time. So it's been
great.
It's been great. And, I feel like this may be an omen for the times going forward. We've had
hopefully not technology-wise.
Technical hitches and all sorts. So what we've proved is we can overcome this and we can provide good quality entertainment for everybody. So
thank you so much to all our guests.
Everybody, Pexman saying fantastic selection tonight, Pour and Sip, excellent. Thank you very much, everybody, and we will see you in August at some point. I have an empty glass.
August 8th.
Slanger, everybody.